Coming up on First at 4, many eastern Kentucky bridges and roads were damaged during the flooding. We'll have an update on the progress being made to get those fixed. And New York's Attorney General is suing former President Trump and his family for hundreds of millions of dollars.
And the fall field is on the way as we head through the second half of the week. The latest details are coming up as First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
A lot of progress is being seen in fixing roads and bridges after the flooding. That's what State Transportation Secretary Jim Gray told state lawmakers in an interim legislative committee today. WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on what was said in Frankfort.
Jim Gray telling lawmakers that there has been a lot of success in making pathways passable once again, cleaning up the massive amount of debris left during the flooding.
Ever since that first night, it's been all hands on deck.
The Transportation Secretary says crews were successful in removing 200,000 tons of debris from rights-of-way and making nearly every roadway passable. Some bridges and parts of roads had to be completely rebuilt.
Among the 1,100 bridges that were assessed on county and state roads, 175 were identified as needing repair or a full rebuild.
We saw a lot of damage, such as here in the Erie community near Robinson Elementary, and still numerous cars and ditches around Perry and Knott counties. But Gray says the first priority has always been to get roads open and passable.
The instructions from Governor Beshear to me were very clear right at the very beginning that night. And it was, Jim, we've got to make these roads passable so we can get our first responders in to do their work. And so that was our first mission.
Gray also says as of now they do believe that they're going to get all the help they need from FEMA in reimbursing the cost of doing all of this work in Kentucky. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
The state also set up 11 pop-up offices to help people replace their lost driver's licenses and IDs. Around the world, people saw images of a fire truck stranded on a creek bank resting underneath a bridge in Knott County following the flooding. But for folks living there, it was a fire truck that had responded to many of their worst tragedies. Chief Preston Hayes says that truck had been parked outside the fire station, but during the flooding, it just floated into a creek beside the building. The fire truck has been around for many years and has a long history in the community.
It's went through parades. It's fought major fires in the county. There was a time when Hyman Fire Department was the first and only fire department in the county, and that truck was going all throughout Knott County putting out fires, keeping the community safe.
The truck was supposed to be finally removed from the creek bank today. WYMT's Olivia Calfee will have more on possible future plans for the truck coming up at 6. With many communities impacted by the floodwaters and relief efforts focused on getting folks back on their feet, the voices that encourage that during every sporting event are hoping to see some relief themselves. The Fleming Neon Middle School cheer team lost most of its equipment to the floodwaters. Now looking at the start of a new season where the 8th grade cheerleaders may not see a payoff for the craft they have been practicing for more than 9 years. Without the mats they practice and perform on, they are only able to cheer on the sidelines with no normalcy to prepare them for annual competition.
They're going through devastation. They're trying to build back after this flood. They're trying to come back together and trying to push through something horrendous. They're practicing in nooks and crannies and practicing in grass and on football fields and make-do mats.
The team just hopes to be able to afford mats in time to practice before their competition this fall. Hear more about their passion and plans coming up at 6.
Well, it certainly feels like a summer day out there, appropriately enough, as we are at the end of meteorological summer out there today, or I should say astronomical summer. Meteorological summer ended on August 31st. So we are, toasty out there. 88 the reading here in Hazard. Look outside the studio, though. It looks absolutely beautiful. Just a few fair weather clouds in the distance. Then you look at the thermometers, and it is a toasty one out there. 90 in Jackson, 90 in London, 91 in Somerset, 92 in Irvine. The warm spot right now. The record at Jackson, we're 1 degree away from tying it, and we are 2 degrees away from tying it, or 3 degrees, I should say, at London. And I just looked back at the climate report of 91 at Jackson, so we've already tied it today, it would appear. We'll check in on that in just a second. Upper 60s to near 70 for the dew point, so it feels like the low to middle 90s. It feels like 97 right now in Somerset. It is a full-on summer day, but we have changes on the way. Right now, maybe a shower trying to sneak there north of Frenchburg and parts of Menifee County, but that's about it at the moment. However, keep that First Alert weather app handy because we do have showers back in the forecast. As we run through tonight, we're going to be falling into the 70s, waking up in the 60s in the morning with the potential for those showers. The full details on how long they stick around, and that's coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, thank you. Well, the New York Attorney General filed a new civil lawsuit today seeking to stop former President Donald Trump and his 3 children who worked for the Trump Organization from ever running another business in the state. Trump says this is just another political attack. CBS's Skyler Henry has more from Washington.
New York Attorney General Letitia James filed a lawsuit claiming former President Donald Trump and 3 of his children committed fraud.
The statements of financial condition were greatly exaggerated, grossly inflated, objectively false, and therefore fraudulent.
The lawsuit accuses the Trump Organization of providing false financial statements to lenders and insurers in order to get better financial terms, such as lower interest rates and lower premiums. James, a Democrat, alleges Trump and his family business violated several state criminal laws and plausibly broke federal criminal laws as well.
There is a parallel criminal investigation being conducted by the District Attorney of Manhattan, and we are cooperating with the Manhattan District Attorney, and any information that he is requesting, we will submit it to his office.
Lawyers for former President Trump called the lawsuit meritless and an unchecked abuse of authority. They also say it's politics as usual. In a statement, Trump's attorney said today's filing is neither focused on the facts nor the law. Rather, it is solely focused on advancing the Attorney General's political agenda.
It's hard for me not to conclude it's a political hit job. And this is a woman who campaigned for office saying that, promising she was going to go after Trump.
The former president had a more personal response for Attorney General James, saying she's a failed AG whose lack of talent in the fight against crime is causing record numbers of people and companies to flee New York. Bye-bye. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Many believe Trump is likely to run again for the White House in 2024. Senate hearings to confirm the new head of the National Archives are normally low-key affairs, but that was before the agency responsible for compiling governmental records was put at the center of an investigation into the former president's handling of governmental records. Today's hearing comes as some Republicans and Democrats or Republicans are demanding answers about the FBI search of Trump's Mar-a-Lago home.
Should this be a voluntary cooperation rather than a legal raid with a search warrant coming into a private residence?
I want to be clear that as the nominee for this position, I have not been briefed on any of the details of what has happened.
Judge Raymond Deary's main focus was on the documents with classified markings. He pushed Trump's attorneys on whether the then president declassified the material prior to leaving office, as Trump himself claims. But Trump's attorneys declined to say, arguing that doing so would complicate their legal defense if the former president is indicted. Legal action is brewing over efforts to ship migrants north. The governors in Arizona, Florida, and Texas have been sending them to areas they call sanctuaries. President Biden's home state of Delaware got word Florida Governor Ron DeSantis may send migrants there. A sheriff in San Antonio, Texas, is investigating 2 flights that originated there. DeSantis is taking credit for flying nearly 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard in coastal Massachusetts.
It's up to the authorities on the ground there to figure out what did and didn't happen.
Some Republicans say ending the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy has led to overcrowding, but some Democrats say the governors are using desperate people as political pawns. Many people on both sides agree the bigger problem is what's driving migrants to the U.S., but they do not agree on what to do about it. What sort of looks like a frat party on a Florida highway, but this beer spill was actually caused by a massive truck crash. 5 semis piled up, and one of them was carrying a lot of Coors Light. Luckily, there were only minor injuries, but the crash obviously caused a big mess. Police say one semi slammed into the back of another one. A third semi stopped behind the crash, then a fourth, along with the pickup. But a fifth semi did not stop, eventually slamming into another truck that was carrying concrete, sending the concrete and Coors all over the road. Part of the highway had to be shut down to clean all that mess up. If you're house hunting, there's a bit of good news. About a quarter of builders say they reduced home prices this month, and you have more options too. New construction is up, but the housing market is still volatile. Builder sentiment, the way they feel about the market and how homes are selling, dropped. Part of it is because of the cost of building supplies, along with higher mortgage rates, which are putting a new home purchase out of reach for a lot of people. Rates were above 6% last week, the highest level since 2008. And the streak is over. After sinking every day for more than 3 months, the average price of a gallon of gas just went up. AAA says it's only by a penny, as prices are now at $3.68, a little lower in many parts of eastern Kentucky. But that ends 98 consecutive days of falling pump prices, the second longest streak on record going back to 2005. Coming up as First at 4 continues, the National Transportation Safety Board wants all new vehicles in the U.S. to come equipped with blood alcohol monitoring systems.
Plus, a cold front brings cooler and drier air to the mountains, and just in time. The details next.
WYMT News app offers alerts on breaking stories as they happen, customized to the categories you choose. The WYMT